Commander Zixtara had lived for 300 years. In that time, she had seen many species come and go across the galaxy. Some were strong, some were smart, some were both. But humans were nothing like that. They were small. They were weak. They broke easily. Zixtara stood in the observation deck of the command station and watched the humans below. There were 50 of them down there, all wearing blue uniforms. They were trying to show the Vextral military leaders how they fought. It was almost funny to watch. Their bodies were so soft. Their skin would tear if you pressed too hard. They could not see in the dark. They could not hear high sounds. They needed to sleep for 8 hours every single day just to stay alive. "This one is Captain Lucas Drake," said her aide, a Kalanathi named Vex, who stood beside her. Vex's body was covered in hard plates that looked like armor. His eyes could see heat from 100 meters away. He did not need sleep like humans did. He wants to show us how humans fight. Zixtara made a sound that was close to human laughter. The idea was ridiculous. Humans fight? Humans could barely do anything at all. They could not lift heavy things. They could not run very fast. They broke their bones easily. She had read the reports. Humans from the planet Earth had been fighting with each other for thousands of years, but that was only because they had nothing better to do. Down below, Lucas Drake was moving his body in strange ways. He was showing the Vextral soldiers different positions. His voice was loud as he explained something called tactics. The Vextral soldiers were much bigger than him. One of them could pick up Drake and throw him across the room without even trying hard. "The Alliance Council wants to know if we will accept humans as fighting soldiers," Vex said. "They want humans to join our military force. What do you think, Commander?" Zixtara did not think for very long. "No," she said. "Humans are too weak. They will die the first time we use them in real combat. They will slow us down. They will use too many resources. Food, water, sleep. It is not worth having them." But then she thought about something else. The Alliance was always looking for new soldiers. Maybe humans could be useful for something. Maybe they could carry supplies. Maybe they could fix machines. Maybe they could clean things. There were always jobs that nobody wanted to do. "Tell them we will give humans a test," Zixtara said. "We will send them to the Kolmara outpost. It is a quiet place. Nothing happens there. If humans can survive a simple job at Kolmara, then maybe we can use them for other things. But I do not think they will survive." When Lucas Drake heard the news, he did not look happy or sad. He just listened to what the officers told him. The human captain would be sent to Kolmara outpost with 200 soldiers and support staff. They would help with basic work. They would not be used in any real fighting. It was an insult to his people, but Drake did not complain. He just nodded and said he understood. 3 days later, Drake was meeting with all the humans who would go to Kolmara. There were medical people, engineers, supply workers, and 60 soldiers. The soldiers were bigger than the other humans. They looked strong for humans, but Zixtara knew that strong for humans was still very weak. "We are going to go to Kolmara outpost," Drake told his people. His voice was calm and clear. "We have been given a job that might seem small, but it is important. The Alliance is watching us. They do not believe we can do anything important. We need to show them that humans are more than what they think we are." One of his soldiers, a woman named Grace with red hair, raised her hand. "What if they give us a real combat mission, sir?" she asked. Drake smiled. "Just a little. Then we will do what humans have always done. We will figure out a way to win. We will not give up. We will do things that nobody expects from us." Zixtara watched the video of this meeting. Drake's words meant nothing to her. Humans always said they would do amazing things, but they never did. This mission to Kolmara would be the same. The humans would do some simple work. Then they would come back. The Alliance would see that humans were not worth using for anything. Important. The transport ship that carried the humans left 3 days later. Zixtara watched it go and forgot about it almost immediately. She had more important things to think about. There were problems with the Keshter insurgents in the outer territories. There were budget questions. There was a meeting with the Alliance Council about new weapons. Systems thought the humans and their little mission were not important at all. Days passed. Then weeks passed. Everything was normal. Zixtara went to her meetings. She gave her orders. She reviewed the military reports. The Alliance was large. Millions of soldiers worked for it. 200 humans at some quiet outpost were nothing worth thinking about. Then, on the 22nd day after Drake's team left, a message came through the encrypted military channel. Zixtara was in her office when the alert came. She was reading something about new supply agreements when her screen flashed with an urgent message. She opened it and read the words. Under heavy attack. Keshter forces, approximately 7,000 strong. We are holding position. Requesting immediate military support. This is Captain Lucas Drake, Kolmara Outpost. Zixtara read it again. Then again, this was not possible. The Keshter were not supposed to attack Kolmara. Nobody was supposed to attack Kolmara. It was a quiet place. It had been quiet for 3 years, but this message was real. The timestamp was real. The security codes were real. Zixtara immediately called Vex into her office. The Kolmara outpost is under attack, she said. Send a fleet to help them. Full combat support. Send everything we have in that region. Vex looked surprised. The outpost with the humans? Yes, said Zixtara. The humans. She pulled up the information about the outpost. 200 people. 200 humans with basic weapons and basic training. Against them were 7,000 Keshter soldiers who had been fighting for years. The Keshter were mean. They were hard. They did not give up. The humans would not last more than a few hours. Maybe a few days if they were very lucky and fought very hard. By the time the support fleet arrived in 4 days, the outpost would be gone. The humans would be dead. Zixtara waited for the next message from Drake. She expected it would be his final message. A message saying that the situation was hopeless. A message asking for emergency evacuation. That message did not come. Instead, 18 hours later, another message came through the same channel. Keshter attack repelled. All humans secure. We are holding this position. We will continue to hold it. We need those supplies you are sending. We need medical support. But we are not lost. Zixtara read the message many times. This was not possible. 200 humans against 7,000 Keshter. The humans had won. She looked at the timestamps again and the security codes. It was real. This had actually happened. Drake and his humans had fought against impossible odds and they had won. Zixtara did not know what this meant. But she knew that everything she believed about humans was wrong. Zixtara did not sleep that night. She sat in her command center and watched the data coming from Kolmara Outpost. More messages came. More information. More details about the battle that was still happening. Drake sent messages every few hours. The Keshter had attacked again at hour 22. The attack had lasted 3 hours. The humans had killed 180 Keshter soldiers and suffered only 5 wounded. Nobody had died. This was not possible. Zixtara ran the numbers again and again. The mathematics did not work. How could 200 humans kill 180 trained soldiers and only have 5 people hurt? She pulled up the surveillance recordings from the outpost. The system was not perfect. Some parts of the recording were unclear, but she could see enough. The humans had not fought like soldiers normally fight. They did not stand in straight lines and shoot at the enemy. They did not try to use brute force. Instead, they had done something different. Zixtara watched a human soldier stand completely still for 17 minutes. He was looking through a weapon attachment. His body did not move. His hand did not shake. He was waiting for something. Then, when the moment came, he fired one shot. One shot only. On the other side of the battlefield, a Keshter commander fell down. The other Keshter soldiers who were following that commander suddenly stopped moving. They looked confused. They did not know what to do without their leader. One shot. One human. One death. And it had changed the entire battle. Zixtara watched more of the recording. The humans had changed the outpost building. They had put metal pieces in different places. They had put guns in positions where the Keshter would not expect them. They had built walls out of things that were not walls. They had made the building into something dangerous. The Keshter did not understand what was happening. They charged at the building the way they always charged. They expected to break through and kill everyone inside. But the humans were waiting. The humans shot them. The humans trapped them. The humans killed them in groups. And when the Keshter tried a different attack, the humans moved to different positions. They did not fight the same way twice. Every attack, the Keshtar found the defense in a different place. This was strange. Zixtara had never seen fighting like this before. She called Vex into her office again. How are the humans doing this? She asked. They should not be able to fight like this. They are not strong enough. They are not fast enough. How are they beating the Keshter? Vex looked at the same data that Zixtara was looking at. His alien face showed something that might have been confusion. I do not know, Commander, he said. The humans are using something called improvisation. They are taking things that are not weapons and making them into weapons. They are taking spaces that are not fortified and making them into fortified positions. They are thinking about the battle in ways that our computers do not predict. On the 5th day of the siege, the humans were still alive. The Keshter had attacked 4 more times. Each time, more Keshter died. The human losses stayed low. Only 2 more humans had been killed. 12 were wounded but still fighting. Zixtara watched a video from that 5th day. Captain Drake himself was in the video. The human looked tired. Blood was on his uniform. His left shoulder was wrapped in bandages. But his eyes were sharp and clear. He was moving through the outpost and talking to his soldiers. He was not giving them big speeches. He was just talking to them, telling them to stay ready, telling them to watch for the next attack, telling them that help was coming, telling them that they could do this. A young human soldier, a man named Kevin, was crying. His friend had just been killed in the last attack. Drake put his hand on Kevin's shoulder. We are all going to get through this, Drake said. You are going to live. Your friends are going to live. And we are going to show the whole galaxy what humans can do. Kevin nodded. He wiped his eyes. He picked up his weapon and went back to his position. Zixtara paused the video. She looked at this human named Drake. He was weak. He was tired. He was bleeding. By all the rules that she knew, he should have given up. He should have surrendered. He should have tried to save at least some of his people by negotiating with the Keshter. Instead, he was telling his soldiers to keep fighting. He was making them believe that they could win. By the 7th day, something strange was happening. The Keshter attacks were becoming weaker. The insurgents were losing soldiers at a rate that was not sustainable. They had started with 7,000. Now they had maybe 4,000 left. The humans had killed 3,000 Keshter, and only 15 humans had died. The math was completely wrong. This should not be happening. Every military analysis said this was impossible. But it was happening. On the 8th day, Drake sent another message. The Keshter are preparing a final assault. They are bringing everything they have left. We are ready. We will not break. Zixtara watched the final attack happen in real time. This was not being recorded. This was happening now. The Keshter came at the outpost like a wave. Thousands of them. They screamed and fired their weapons. They had nothing left to lose. This was everything. The humans did not try to hide anymore. They came out of their positions and fought the Keshter in the open. Hand to hand. Weapon to weapon. The humans were smaller and weaker. The Keshter should have crushed them immediately, but the humans did not fight like they should have. They fought like they had learned something that no amount of biological strength could overcome. They fought smart. They fought together. When one human was in danger, 2 others came to help. When the Keshter tried to break through one line, the humans fell back to another line. When the Keshter thought they had the humans trapped, the humans were already somewhere else. It lasted 4 hours. 4 hours of continuous fighting. When it was over, the Keshter were broken. They stopped attacking. The surviving insurgents ran. They left their dead behind. They disappeared into the darkness. The battle was over. Drake stood in the middle of the outpost and looked at his soldiers. 27 humans were dead. 83 were wounded. But they had won. Against a force that was 35 times larger, they had won. Drake did not celebrate. He just looked at his people. He looked at the blood and the damage and the cost of what they had done. Get everyone to medical, he said. His voice was quiet. Count our dead. Send their names to their families. And then we will hold this position until help arrives. Zixtara sat in her command center and watched this all happen. Everything she had believed about humans was wrong. They were not weak. Or maybe they were weak. Maybe their bodies were fragile, but their minds were different. Their will was different. The myths about human warriors suddenly made sense. The myths were not about how strong humans were. The myths were about how humans refused to die. How humans found ways to win when they should have lost. How humans did things that should not be possible, but somehow were done, and now the myths were walking around. Komara outpost wearing a blue uniform and giving orders to survive. The reinforcement fleet arrived on the morning of the 10th day. Zixtara sent ships carrying food, medicine, and soldiers to help secure Komara outpost. The soldiers were not needed for combat anymore. The battle was over. The Keshter had been defeated. Instead, the reinforcement fleet found humans who were standing guard, still holding weapons, still ready to fight. They had not put their weapons down. They had not relaxed. They were waiting for something that might not come, just in case. Zixtara reviewed the casualty numbers again. 2,384 Keshter soldiers were dead. The humans reported finding their bodies scattered across the outpost grounds and the surrounding area. The Keshter forces had been completely destroyed. 27 humans had died. 83 were wounded. 190 humans had survived without serious injury. Zixtara asked for the tactical analysis of the battle. She wanted to understand what had happened. How had the humans done this? The first report was about the preparation. Before the Keshter even arrived, Drake had ordered his people to change the outpost building. They had taken metal sheets from storage and used them to reinforce weak walls. They had taken pipes and wire and created obstacles that forced attackers into specific routes. They had studied the building and found every advantage it could provide. They had done all of this without any special equipment. They had used what they had. They had improvised. The second report was about positioning. Instead of putting all their soldiers in one place, Drake had spread them out. Every soldier could see another soldier. Every position could protect another position. If the Keshter broke through one area, 3 other areas could attack them from the sides. Zixtara understood military strategy. But this was different. This was not just strategy. This was something else. The third report was about something called synchronization. The human soldiers had acted together without needing to talk constantly. They had learned each other's patterns. They had learned to move together as a single unit instead of as individuals. The Keshter soldiers fought as individuals. Each one tried to kill as many enemies as possible before dying. The humans fought as a team. Each one was willing to die to protect the others. The fourth report talked about patience. Again and again, human soldiers had waited for hours without moving. They had waited for the perfect moment to attack. They had waited until they could make one shot count instead of wasting many shots. This kind of patience required a kind of control that Zixtara had not thought humans could have done by the time she had read all the reports. Zixtara understood that everything she had learned about humans was incomplete. She decided that she needed to see Drake in person. She traveled to Kolmara outpost with a small group of guards. When she arrived, Drake was in the medical facility. His shoulder wound was being treated. His clothes had been changed, but he was still covered in the signs of what he had been through. "Captain Drake," Zixtara said. She used a formal address because she did not know how else to address him. Drake stood up from the medical bed. His doctor told him to sit back down, but he refused. He stood in front of Zixtara with his shoulders straight, even though Zixtara could see the pain in his face. "Commander Zixtara," he said, "welcome to Kolmara." They walked together to a place where they could talk privately. Zixtara wanted to understand him. She wanted to understand how he had been able to do what he had done. "How did you know how to fight like that?" she asked. "Your species has no natural advantages. You have no weapons that are better than Keshter weapons. Yet, you won." Drake sat down slowly, trying to protect his wound. "Humans have been fighting since the beginning of our existence," he said. "We fought animals that were bigger and stronger. We fought other humans for territory and resources. We fought against cold and hunger and disease. We learned to fight with our minds because our bodies were not strong enough. But that does not explain how you defeated the Keshtor," Zixtara said. "It explains everything," Drake replied. "The Keshtor are strong. They are fast. They are trained soldiers. But they expect battles to work a certain way. They expect enemies to fight in predictable patterns. When you break those patterns, they do not know how to adapt." Drake looked at Zixtara with serious eyes. "My people have learned that the only way to survive against stronger enemies is to be smarter. Not smarter in ways that we are naturally smart, but smarter in ways that we learn. We learn by making mistakes and surviving. We learn by trying things that other species would never think of trying." Zixtara considered this. On her world, there had never been a need to think this way. Her species had always been strong. They had always won. "The myths about human warriors," she said. "I have heard them called exaggeration. But I believe now that they are not exaggeration. They are just stories about your people being unwilling to accept defeat." "That is close," Drake said. "But it is more than that. It is about refusing to believe that anything is impossible. When a human sees a problem, the first thing we think is not whether we can solve it. The first thing we think is how we can solve it. We assume that there is always a way forward." Zixtara left the medical facility and toured the outpost. She saw what the humans had built. She saw the improvised weapons. She saw the reinforced positions. She saw everything that had been created from common materials and human creativity. She also saw the human soldiers. They were tired. They had lost friends. They had been through a battle that should have killed all of them. But they were standing guard. They were checking weapons. They were preparing for the next possible attack. Even though the battle was over, They were not acting like it was over. They were acting like danger could return at any moment. This was another thing that Zixtara understood now. Humans did not fight because they wanted to fight. Humans fought because they had to fight. And even when the fighting stopped, the humans were still ready. She sent a communication to the Alliance Council. The human military contingent has exceeded all expectations. They have defeated a Keshter force that was 35 times larger. I recommend that we grant humans full military status in the Galactic Alliance. I recommend that we assign human soldiers to every major defensive position. I recommend that we ask humans to teach our soldiers how they think about combat. The council responded within hours. They wanted to know if Zixtara was serious. They wanted to know if she had verified the information. They wanted to know how the humans had done this. Zixtara sent them the battle recordings. She sent them the tactical analysis. She sent them the casualty numbers. And she sent them a personal message. I made a mistake about humans. I believe that they could not be valuable because they are not strong. I was wrong. Humans are valuable because they are not strong. They've learned to do more with less. They've learned to think when other species only know how to fight. It is time that we accepted them as equals. The Alliance Council agreed. Humans would be granted full combat status. Humans would be integrated into the military command structure. Humans would be allowed to teach other soldiers how they thought about problems and battles. And Captain Lucas. Drake would receive an award for his actions at Komara Outpost. But when Zixtara told Drake about this, he did not seem happy about the award. He seemed tired. He seemed sad about the humans who had died. I did not do anything special, Drake said. I just did what any human would do. I tried to keep my people alive. I tried to find a way to win. That is not special. That is just being human. Zixtara understood now. The myths were not about being special. The myths were about being willing to fight for something that mattered. The myths were about refusing to give up. The myths were about being human. 3 months passed after the siege at Komara. Drake and the surviving humans were transferred to a new facility. This facility was meant to be a training center. The Alliance wanted the human soldiers to teach other species how to fight the way humans fought. Drake did not like being called a teacher. He was a soldier, but he understood that teaching was a kind of mission. So he accepted the job. Zixtara visited the training facility on the first day of the new program. She wanted to see how humans would try to explain their methods to alien soldiers. Drake stood in the center of a large training room. Around him were soldiers from 6 different alien species. There were Vextral warriors who could heal from almost any injury. There were Kelanathi soldiers with exoskeletons that were harder than metal. There were 3 other species, all physically superior to humans, and they were all waiting to learn from a human. Drake did not start with complicated lessons. He started with questions. Why do you fight? He asked the assembled soldiers. The soldiers looked confused. This was not the kind of question they expected. We fight to protect our people, said one Vextral warrior. We fight to win, said a Kelanathi soldier. We fight because we are trained to fight, said another. Drake nodded. Good answers. Now, I want you to think about something different. What happens when you are losing? What happens when your enemy is stronger and faster and has more soldiers? What do you do then? We fight until we die, said one soldier. We retreat, said another. We surrender, said a third. Drake nodded again. Those are the answers that most soldiers would give. But there is another answer. You can refuse to accept that you are losing. You can look at the situation and ask, how can I win? Not can I win. How can I win? The soldiers were quiet. They did not seem to understand the difference. Drake explained. When you think, "Can I win?" you are looking for reasons why you cannot win. Your enemy is too strong. You do not have enough soldiers. Your weapons are not good enough. You cannot win, so you give up. But when you think, "How can I win?" you are looking for solutions. Every problem has a solution. You just need to find it. One of the younger soldiers, a Vextrol named Kex, raised his hand. But what if there is no solution? What if you really cannot win? Then you find a way to not lose, Drake said. You delay. You protect what matters most. You try to survive long enough for help to arrive. You never accept that you have to lose. Drake walked the soldiers through a scenario. He created a situation where they were outnumbered 5-1. He told them that their weapons were broken. He told them that reinforcements would take 3 days to arrive. He asked them, "What do you do?" The soldiers argued for a long time. Finally, they said they would find a fortified position and hold it until reinforcements arrived. Drake nodded. Good. You are starting to think like humans. Now, how do you choose your position? We choose a place that is easy to defend, said one soldier. We choose a place with good lines of sight, said another. We choose a place with multiple exits for retreat, said a third. Drake smiled. It was a small smile, but it was there. Yes, and what about using your enemy's numbers against them? What if the position you choose is so narrow that only a few of them can attack at once? Then their superior numbers become a disadvantage. By the end of the day, the soldiers understood something new. Strength and speed were not the only ways to win. Planning and thinking were just as important. Days passed. Then weeks. The human training program spread to other military bases across the galaxy. More and more soldiers wanted to learn from humans, and something interesting started happening. The soldiers who had trained with humans began to fight better. They won battles that they should have lost. They adapted to new situations quickly. They thought about problems instead of just trying to solve them with brute force. The Keshter insurgency, which had been a problem for 3 years, was destroyed in 3 months. Human soldiers, working with soldiers from other species, hunted down the remaining Keshter fighters and eliminated them. And the humans did not just kill them. The humans tried to capture some of them alive. They wanted to understand why the Keshter had started the insurgency. They wanted to know if the problem could have been solved without so much fighting. When Zixtar heard about this, she understood something else about humans. They did not enjoy war. They did not fight because they liked fighting. They fought because they had to. And they always looked for ways to end fighting with the least amount of death. Zixtar visited Drake at the training facility one day. The human was teaching a lesson to a new group of soldiers. He was showing them how to move through a building that might have enemies. The lesson involved a lot of waiting and watching. Drake kept telling the soldiers to stop rushing. Stop trying to solve everything quickly. Take time to understand what you are facing. This was difficult for most alien soldiers. They were used to fighting fast and hard. Humans wanted them to fight slow and smart. After the lesson, Drake sat down with Zixtara in a quiet office. Your people are changing, she said. The soldiers who train here are different from the ones who came before. They think differently. They solve problems differently. Humans have always been like this, Drake said. We just have a different way of learning. Our bodies are weak, so our minds have to be strong. We have to think about everything carefully. We have to consider every option. We cannot rely on strength to solve problems. Zixtar considered this. Her people were strong. They had always been strong. But maybe that strength had made them lazy. Maybe they had stopped thinking because their bodies could do most of the work. The myths about human warriors, Zixtar said. I think I finally understand them. It is not about humans being stronger or faster. It is about humans being unable to give up. Drake looked out the window at the training soldiers. Many of them were practicing what he had taught them. Humans do not give up because we have to survive, he said. On our world, things try to kill us all the time. The animals are bigger. The weather is colder and hotter and more violent. The other humans are stronger. We survive because we refuse to die. It is that simple. It is not simple, Zixtara said. Most species would give up. Most species would accept defeat. But humans refuse. Yes, Drake agreed. And now other species are learning that refusing to accept defeat is more valuable than being strong. Zixtara stood up to leave. The Alliance is talking about making you a general, she said. A leader of all military forces for the outer territories. What do you think about that? Drake looked surprised. I am a soldier. I have never wanted to be in command. Neither did I, Zixtara said. But sometimes the job chooses you instead of you choosing it. Sometimes you have to do something because nobody else can do it as well as you can. Drake was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. I will do it. If the Alliance thinks I can help, then I will try. But I will do it the human way. I will think about the problems. I will try to find solutions that cause the least amount of death. I will work with other soldiers instead of just ordering them around. That is exactly what the Alliance needs, Zixtara said. A leader who thinks. A leader who refuses to accept that something is impossible. A leader who is human. She left the training facility and returned to her command station. Everything had changed in 3 months. The weak species from the blue planet had become the strongest military force in the galaxy. Not because of their bodies, but because of their minds. Because of their refusal to give up. Because of the myths that had turned out to be true. 1 year after the siege at Kolmara, something important happened. The Alliance military command structure was reorganized. The outer territories, which had been a problem area for a long time, were now under the leadership of General Lucas Drake. He was the first human to hold such a position. Zixtara stood in the command center and watched as Drake gave his first official orders as a general. His voice was calm and clear. He did not seem nervous or excited. He just spoke the words that needed to be spoken. We have defeated the Keshter insurgency, Drake said to the gathered military leaders from many species. We have destroyed their military forces. We have captured their supply bases. But a war is not won just by destroying the enemy's weapons. A war is won when the enemy no longer wants to fight. The alien commanders looked confused. This was not the kind of thing that military leaders usually said. Military leaders talked about victory. They talked about conquest. They did not talk about making enemies not want to fight. I am ordering that we open talks with the remaining Keshter leaders, Drake continued. I want to know what caused them to start the insurgency. I want to know what they want. And I want to know if there's a way to give them what they want without more war. An old Vextral general stood up. General Drake, the Keshter are our enemies. We do not negotiate with enemies. We defeat them completely. Drake nodded. He understood what the general was saying. I have fought the Keshter. I have killed them. And in 1 day of fighting, my people and I lost friends. We killed friends of the Keshter. Now, there are families on both sides that will hate each other forever because of those deaths. I do not want to add more deaths to that list. The Vextral general sat back down. He did not say anything else. But Zixtara could see that he was thinking about what Drake had said. Over the next few months, Drake's approach worked. The remaining Keshter leaders agreed to talks. Some of them agreed to peace. Some of them agreed to stop fighting in exchange for land and resources. A few of them still wanted to fight, and Drake eliminated them. But most of the Keshter insurgency ended not with total destruction, but with understanding. The Alliance military learned something new because of this. Sometimes, the best way to win was to understand your enemy. Sometimes, the best victory was one where nobody had to die anymore. And Zixtara realized that this was another thing that made humans different. Humans could kill with efficiency. Humans could destroy their enemies. But humans also understood that killing was not the only answer. Humans wanted peace. They wanted to stop fighting. They wanted to go home and be with their families. 6 months later, Zixtara was invited to a ceremony. It was held on a military base where the human training program had started. Many soldiers from many species had gathered to receive awards for their service. One of the soldiers was Grace, the red-haired human woman who had been at Komara. She had been wounded badly during the siege. Her left leg had been damaged so much that doctors said she would never walk properly again. But Grace had used her own training. She had refused to accept that she was permanently damaged. She had worked with doctors and physical specialists. She had trained her body to work in new ways. Now she walked only with a slight limp. She was back on active duty. When her name was called, she walked to the platform to receive her medal. The way she moved showed the effort that every step required. But she did not show pain. She did not show doubt. She had refused to accept defeat. The human way. After the ceremony, Zixtara found Drake standing alone, looking out at the stars. "Your people have changed the galaxy," Zixtara said. "1 year ago, I did not believe humans could be useful. Now humans are serving in every military command. Humans are teaching other species how to think. Humans are winning battles that should be impossible to win." "It is not just my people," Drake said. "Other species are learning. Other species are understanding that strength is not everything. Intelligence is everything. Will is everything. The refusal to give up is everything. The myths about human warriors," Zixtara said. "I have been thinking about them. I have been thinking about what they really mean. They do not mean that humans are stronger. They do not mean that humans are faster. They mean that humans are impossible to defeat because humans refuse to accept defeat." Drake smiled. It was a real smile this time. A smile of someone who was finally being understood. "On Earth, where humans come from, we had an animal called a honey badger," Drake said. "It was a small creature. It was not particularly strong, but it had a reputation for being willing to fight anything. Bigger animals. Poisonous creatures. It did not matter. The honey badger would fight. And it would often win. Not because it was stronger, but because it refused to lose." Zixtara had never heard of a honey badger, but she understood what Drake was saying. "Humans are like the honey badger," Zixtara said. "Humans are like the honey badger," Drake agreed. Time continued to pass. Months became years. The outer territories became stable. The military academies that had been started to teach human fighting methods became more successful. Students from every species in the galaxy wanted to learn how humans thought, and something unexpected happened. Young soldiers from wealthy and peaceful species began to seek combat assignments. They wanted to understand what humans had learned. They wanted to train with humans. They wanted to learn how to refuse to give up. The myths about human warriors spread across the galaxy. But now, everyone knew that the myths were real. The myths were not exaggeration. The myths were simply accurate descriptions of what humans could do when they put their minds together. On a quiet evening, Zixtara stood in her office and looked at the newest reports. General Drake had just completed a successful operation in a region that had been considered impossible to stabilize. Using human tactics and human thinking, he had solved problems that had seemed unsolvable. A younger officer came into the office. The officer was Vex, the same Kalanathi who had worked with Zixtara when humans first arrived. "Commander," Vex said, "there is a request from the Young Soldiers Academy. They want General Drake to come and speak to them." They want to know what it is like to be the first human general. They want to understand how humans think. Zixtar nodded. Tell Drake to go. Tell him to speak to them. The galaxy needs to understand humans. The galaxy needs to learn what it means to refuse to give up. After Vex left, Zixtara thought about something. She had been a commander for 300 years. She had thought she understood everything about war. She had thought she understood everything about strength, but she had been wrong. The strongest thing in the galaxy was not physical power. The strongest thing in the galaxy was will. The strongest thing was a living being who refused to accept that something was impossible. The strongest thing was a human who would never give up. That was the real myth. That was the truth that had been hidden in the old stories. Humans were not superhumans. Humans were not robots who felt no pain or fear. Humans were just people who looked at the worst situation and said, I will find a way to win. And once the galaxy understood that, the myths were no longer myths. They were just descriptions of reality. They were just stories about what happened when humans showed other species how to think. The galaxy would never be the same.